So I take it that you're interested in the study of phrenology? Well, phrenology is supposed to kind of give you a cranial map of your personality. People claim it's pseudoscience, but nowadays no one really has a grasp on what science is supposed to be in the first place. So it's just fun to kind of play with different theories from the past and see which one has validity or which one doesn't have validity as an individual. So, phrenology was developed by a German scientist who basically said that different parts of the brain are responsible for different functions, and that when you exercise one part of the brain, depending on whichever part you kind of exercise the most, that muscle in your brain is going to work itself out like a muscle. And so once it gains strength, it'll be more prominent. And based off its prominence, particularly as your skull develops, but also just kind of over your adult lifetime, it'll start to shape the spot in your skull, kind of creating a bump. So if you, for example, work out your sense of ideality a lot, then there might be a small bump on this section of your head responsible for that function. Or if you don't tend to really exercise certain qualities, then those areas of your head can be either flat based off of its just average use, where it's not really overly used or underused, it's just, the average of what it would look like. Or if you never use that function, then you can find a lot of indentations inside of someone's skull. Now, people have tried debunking phrenology as being a pseudoscience for probably like 100 years, stating that it's just impossible to determine someone's personality or skill set based off of bumps on their head. This might be true, but phrenology has pretty much established psychology as a science, and it also established the fact that the brain is responsible, that different sections of the brain are responsible for different functions that you're capable of. So today I'm just going to cover the different functions of your brain according to phrenology. I'm going to be feeling for the different bumps in your head. Please don't mind the pipes. We unfortunately live in a dinky little apartment, and these pipes just cannot silence themselves. I will be feeling for different bumps around your head, seeing which ones are more prominent or less prominent, and then we'll take it from there. Okay? We're going to start from your frontal lobe, or your perceptives, so it's your outlook. We're going to start underneath your eyes, which are responsible for your language. So I'm just going to feel underneath your eyes and see if you have some prominent bones here, maybe like high cheekbones. They are prominent, which means you're a very articulate person. Now I'm going to be checking in between your eyebrows. This is your sense of individuality. Now this is where some people state that the pineal gland is located. They state that if you drink fluoride, that it'll block your pineal gland and make you kind of like this sheepish zombie who's more susceptible to like group programming. But no matter what, everyone just kind of observes that this is where your sense of self or your sense of identity comes from, how you set yourself apart from the larger crowd, depending on which crowd you feel, believe, or think you belong to. So I'm going to now just give this a little tap to see if I can feel a bump or not. Here's a little bit of a prominence there. There's a small little bump right there. Now I'm going to be checking a little bit above that, which is your sense of eventuality. Your sense of eventuality is your concept of time and how things will, oh, ironically, it's your memorization of facts. So I'm going to be checking for your bump right above your individuality to see if it's prominent or not. So stay still for me. Average. It's pretty fine. It's not necessarily terrible, but it's okay. Now we're going to be checking for your locality, which is right beside your eventuality. Your locality is your recollection of places. So usually women will remember places or, locations based off of buildings or billboards, physical structures that are there that'll recall it to mind. Typically, men will remember locations or places based off of street names or directions. At least that's how it was before society became very feminized. Now the code of conduct is pretty much remembering locations based off of buildings. But those are how the defaults usually work, according to the masculine and feminine energies. So, I'm now going to feel for your sense of locality, your sense of location. Something just dropped from the sky. Oh, I see. That's disgusting. Give me one moment. I must cut its head off. It's writhing in pain, but it doesn't understand that it's a disgusting parasite. And yet another. There we go. Problem solved. Issue resolved. Now, I'm just going to be feeling for your locality. And there is a small bump there. So, now, I'm going to be feeling for your sense of perception of size. So these senses are going to be around the ocular area. In this area is where we kind of perceive, or where your visual perceptions lie. So I'm going to go a little bit close right here underneath your brow bone to see what your perception on size is, how you perceive the shape of things. There is a bump there, and right next to it is your perception of weight. There is another bump there. Perception of weight is much like the perception of size. It's just your ability to determine if you can accurately size up. In the case of size, how tall or short or big or small something is. And in the case of weight, to see if you can kind of fathom the weight of something, whether it's light or heavy. Next to weight, we have color. So that one's just basically your perception of different colors and their hues and the whatever spectrum that color lies in, like pink, red, so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna feel for that little bump, and excellent. You have a bump there too. Now for your sense of order. So that's not necessarily your orderliness, that's another function, but rather your ability to process in what order something belongs to. So that could be chronologically or alphabetically, your ability to organize things into a set list. So I'm just going to feel for that little bump. Excellent. It's prominent. And now behind order is calculation, so your ability to process numbers. There's another bump there. Congratulations. Now for your sense of bibativeness. This, I believe, is your penchant for drinking, I believe. But let me see if I'm mistaken or not. Alimentiveness is your appetite, and I believe that your bibativeness would be your sense of drinking. I'll skip that one for now since I'm not too quite sure. Now, as for your sense of tune, this is your sense of feeling out a balance in harmony and melody. This is right above your sense of order. So I'm just going to go right here on this side of your face. Excellent. That's prominent. Now for your sense of time. Excellent. And then next to your sense of time is your locality, which is something that we already tested. And then we already tested your eventuality. So we've already covered your perceptives. Now we're going to move on to your reflectives. Your reflectives are those that basically can perceive yourself as an individual among a group. So let's see. We have comparativeness, which naturally means how your faculty of comparing yourself to others sizes up. So that's going to be right here, right on the center of your forehead. So I'm just going to feel for a bump. Yeah, I'm feeling a bump right there. And then right to the side of comparativeness, there is causality, which is your ability to process cause and effect. This entire section is your frontal lobe. Typically, people who have more recessed frontal lobes don't have the capacity to process themselves as an individual among the collective, to basically account for their own actions and to understand the role that they play. So people who tend to have a recessed frontal lobe tend to have lower IQs, and if you have a lower IQ, you don't tend to understand cause and effect. You tend to think very short term. You tend to think in very instinctual bursts. This tends to offend those with low IQ, but at the end of the day, once again, their attention span is so short that all they'll remember is the anger, but they can't recall what it was that made them so annoyed. So, we're just going to test for your cause and effect now. And there's a bump. Congratulations. You're a self-governing, fully realized person. And now above causality, we have agreeableness. Now, this is your ability to be pleasant in polite company. So I'm just going to test that one. Excellent, we have a bump there. And next we have your human nature, or your ability to comprehend human nature. So your perception of motives, whether it belongs to you or others, if you can process what potentially could motivate another person. And it's prominent, very nice. A key tip to human nature is oftentimes everyone is default thinking that others have the same motivations that they themselves hold as well, thinking that they live in a homogenous society where everyone holds the same values, and in which that promotes a high trust society. But if you live in a lower trust society, meaning that you tend to get anxious outside, you tend to kind of look over your shoulder, you tend to feel like you're not entirely safe, then it is very helpful to understand that others do not share your motives. And if you can perceive what someone's motives are based off of their ability to comprehend society, then you can more easily protect yourself and kind of evade certain pitfalls. Now we're going to cover your sense of morality, or your moral faculties. These are at the top of your head towards the center. So I'm going to feel for the more frontal bumps right about here. This will be your benevolence. So this is your ability to exercise kindness. And there's a bump there. Excellent. Kindness isn't something where you exhibit cowardice or spinelessness. This is not being kind towards people who will clearly take advantage of it. Kindness is defined by your ability to show clemency or mercy to someone who perchance does deserve it. But we're moving on to veneration, which is right behind a benevolence. Veneration is your ability of developing devotion or respect for something higher than yourself. And there's also a prominent bump there. Underneath benevolence, we have imitation. So it's your ability to sort of mold yourself around a higher role model. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the previous qualities that we've assessed. This one's a little to the side, right here. It's a bump there. Behind imitation, we have spirituality. So your sense of faith or intuition and how you kind of flow through it. Some people say that we're, part of one collectiveness, oneness in the universe. This can also be described as the Holy Spirit in Christian doctrine, or it can be described as a life source, where when you're in tune with the life source, then everything is made manifest for you. And there's also a bump there. And then behind spirituality, we have hope. This is your sense of not necessarily optimism, because optimism can sometimes just be a state of uneducated positivity, but rather your ability to see the light in the darkness. And there's a bump there. Excellent. Now, underneath the moral faculties, towards the center of the side of your head, we have 3 qualities that make up the self-perfecting faculties. Self-perfecting is kind of, in and of itself, the explanation for what these functions serve. So, at the top, right about here, we have mirthfulness. Mirthfulness, give me one moment, is your sense of wit, your sense of fun, your ability to see the lightness in a heavy subject. So, for example, I think the greatest show that could possibly encapsulate mirthfulness is South Park, or anything by Seth MacFarlane. These are comedians who basically function as a huge humility pill, where although they do make fun of pretty much everything, that in itself is their lightness, that's their wit, that's their sense of giving air to a almost breathless world at times. Underneath mirthfulness, we have ideality. Ideality is your sense of refinement, it's your sense of taste, it's your ability to look at a beautiful cathedral or a beautiful building that was built perhaps like 700 years ago with, pristine detail, and recognize how stunning or gorgeous it is. It's your ability to cultivate a sense of understanding and appreciation for art or creation. So I'm just going to feel for ideality. And there is a bump. Excellent. Some people seek to destroy one's enjoyment of ideality through modernism by creating buildings that have no personality, no identity, no detail, human detail to it, or just by simply destroying buildings in general. But you can definitely combat that by just looking at the beautiful and just recognizing how stunning and marvel it is. It's almost worth laying your life down for to protect. Next to ideality, we have constructiveness. Constructiveness is your ability to have mechanical ingenuity. So your ability to kind of understand how something is built or works or is constructed. And there is a bump there. Congratulations. We move on to your spring faculties, or your ability to grow and possess stability. So behind veneration, we have firmness. And this is towards like the back of your head. So I'm just going to feel for the back of your head. This is your ability to be decisive and or persuasive. And there's a bump there. Congratulations. Behind firmness, we have your sense of self-esteem, or your self-respect, your dignity. This is very important to have. There is a bump there. Excellent. Now, underneath firmness, we have conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is your sense of justice. There is a bump there. Excuse me. And then underneath conscientiousness, there is sublimity, which is your love of the grandeur. It's kind of like ideality as well. Hence why it's kind of a cross from ideality. And there is a bump there too. Now behind sublimity, there is cautiousness. Cautiousness is naturally someone with prudence, someone who can discern danger. So I'm just going to feel for a bump. Excellent, there is one. You seem to be exercising the full faculties of your brain. Congratulations. And then above cautiousness is approbativeness, which is your sense of ambition, your sense of setting goals and achieving them and wanting to basically exercise your free will in a positive direction. So I'm just going to feel for a bump there. And excellent. There is a bump there. Now, we move on to your faculties located around your occipital lobe. These faculties are in relation to the home life, your domestic faculties. So, we have 6 in total. We're going to start at the very top of your occipital lobe. I'm going to just feel my arm around. And I feel a bump there. There is a bump on your sense of continuity. Your sense of continuity is your ability to concentrate. It is very important for one to have an ability to focus on what needs to be done for your family. Underneath continuity is your sense of inhabitiveness, or the love of home. So your ability to be at home and want to take care of it and tend to it. There's a bump there. Excellent. Next to inhabitiveness, there is friendship. Family can also include friends. It shouldn't only be friends unless you're like a monk or a nun, but they are an extension of one's immediate family. And you have a bump there too. Underneath friendship, we have conjugality. So that naturally means your love of matrimony or belonging to another person. This is someone that you are one under God with. This is someone that you become one. You are no longer discernible as an individual. You are now a new being in relation to this new matrimony that you've sacrificed your own will, your own sense of selfishness for, to basically join. So I'm going to now just feel for a bump there. And there is a bump. Excellent. And then next to conjugality, we have parental love. This is obviously the love that one has for your fetus, your infant, your child, your adolescent, your adult child, your adult offspring. This is someone that you can fully dedicate the rest of your life to raising, protecting, and wanting to seek the best for in this life. So I'm just going to see if you can have a bump there. Excellent, there is a bump there. And then at the very bottom, at the base of your head, there is amativeness. Amativeness is the sexual desire that you have for your loved one. So this is your ability to enjoy the physical expression of love. And I do mean love. If it is lust that drives your amativeness, then there is going to be an indention in that section of your head, because what you're practicing is not an exercise of the muscle in your brain, but rather almost like a dopamine addiction, which will fry the senses or the neurons inside of your brain, making it incapable for you to actually enjoy amativeness. You wouldn't understand unless you have the faculty to process that message. If you guide yourself based off of the pursuit of sexual pleasure with different people, then you're practically an addict. And addiction ruins your brain. It basically makes you a slave. And slaves don't use self-discipline or exercise because their master is whatever they are chasing after. Now we're going to move on to the last cluster of faculties. This is going to be your anima, your sense of instinct. So speak of the devil. Now we're going to go behind your ear, at the base of your ear, and see if you have a bump on your vitativeness. Your vitativeness is your love for life, and there is a bump there. Excellent. Typically, if you have a prominent moral faculties, you're going to have a prominent love for life. If your moral faculties are underdeveloped, then your love for life will probably be non-existent. Because then what is there to live for, if not just the pursuit of baseless pleasure that then becomes almost a prison for yourself? Hence the slavery mention. Above vitativeness, we have combativeness. So this is your instinct or resistance towards whether it is ideas or other people. So I'm going to feel for a bump there. and there is one. Above combativeness, we have secretiveness. That's pretty much self-evident as to what your capacities are. There is a small bump there. Underneath secretiveness, we have destructiveness. So this is your ability to cause permanent harm to someone else. And there is not a bump there. Above destructiveness, we have acquisitiveness. Acquisitiveness is the accumulation of wealth, or your pursuit of it. And that one's pretty average. The destructiveness was also average. It's not that you didn't have a bump there. It's just that it's not something that really dominates you. But the pursuit of your ability to offend against someone can be a virtue depending on the context. Now, lastly, we have alimentativeness. This is your love for food, your appetite, your sense of hunger. This is right in front of your ear, so I'm just going to go right here and feel for that. Okay, excellent. That one's a little bit prominent too. You have a small bump there. So, now that we've covered all of your different faculties, we have found your personality kind of mapped out. Your frontal lobe was all very prominent, meaning that your perception of the material world is pretty much accurate, if not something that you exercise. Your ability to process human nature, to fathom human nature, is also prominent. You're probably someone who has a high IQ. Above your sense of reflectives, we have your morality. Your morality is also very prominent, meaning that you have a purpose for life. You have a meaning and a structure that you mold your life around. Underneath morality, we have the self-perceptives, the self-perfecting. The self-perfecting are also very prominent, meaning that you have goals and ambitions and admiration for that which is higher than yourself. Behind those two clusters, we have the ability of for you to grow and to stabilize as an individual, also quite prominent. Underneath that, we have the domestic faculties, very prominent once again, so excellent for you. And then we have the anima, so your instincts. And they are largely active and exercised. So you are a very fully complex and developed being. And yeah, congratulations. I would say that it's quite fun to feel for the bumps inside of your own head and see where they lie according to the map. So if you decide to double check my work, then please be my guest. But if you would like me to double check once again which bumps are located in which areas of your brain or skull, then please don't be a stranger to my little room. But otherwise, in that case, I hope you take care, and bye-bye.